Active listening. Now that we know the 5 levels of listening and the stages from passive interest to total empathy, how do we get there? Just as learning to read and write takes practice, so does the art of active listening. Simply hearing someone isn't enough. You have to be very conscious and mindful of what skills you need to develop to be a great listener. Active listening is one of the strongest relationship-building skills you can have. It establishes respect and concern for your partner's viewpoints and makes it easier for you to process information that's intricate and difficult to understand through passive listening. It also eases the communication process. Active listening helps you get better informed on what the other person's needs are and therefore makes you less anxious and more open with your responses. Listening involves more than your sense of hearing or sustaining eye contact. Your brain needs to compute several other aspects as well. In addition to understanding the speaker, you need to take other invisible factors into account. What their intentions might be, the context of the conversation, and even nonverbal signals and variations that you can't transcribe. At the same time, we have to push our ego out of the way so we can truly access what the other person is saying. We call this process active listening because it engages so many parts of our mind and makes us do something to understand what's being communicated. Therapists, good ones at least, are excellent models of how to be an active listener. They listen to their clients with a clear purpose. If there's something they're hearing that they're not 100% sure about, they encourage their clients to be clear and deliberate. They try to restate their patients' statements and ask them to elaborate on what they mean. Above all, they try to make their clients feel calm and safe about communicating through contemplation, clear body language, and a spirit of empathy. Active listening involves a few essential elements that you can start concentrating on almost immediately. Comprehending. The first step in active listening is, of course, understanding what the other person is saying in the first place. If the person who's talking to us is speaking the same language as we normally do, this process is fairly automatic. But there are other potential blocks. For example, if the person uses a lot of jargon or slang that we don't know, or if there are differences in generation, social standing, or culture that we just don't know enough about. A great thing to ask if we're not understanding what someone's saying is, "Can you explain it to me as if I were 5 years old?" A 5-year-old kid knows enough words to hold a conversation, but needs to have relatively complex situations described to them in a very patient, deliberate way, using the words that they already know. Especially if you think the other person fears appearing condescending or patronizing to you, asking them to describe something as if you were, let's say, far younger than your actual age, we can make them feel a little more at ease. Other statements asking for help comprehending include the following. What happened? Tell me your story. What do you mean? Tell me more. Retaining. More than just remembering what you just heard, retaining information is understanding what the speaker is trying to say so we can give back a suitable reply. Retaining isn't quite as simple as accurate recall. When we're listening to someone, we tend to retain only the details that strike us more personally or in ways that we're most used to retaining information. For example, if someone's telling us about a date they went on, we might be the kind that remembers the physical details of the event, what restaurant they went to, what movie they saw, what they were wearing. Or we might recall some more general narrative about the date as a whole, what personality the other person had, what the date felt like, how it compared to other dates in the past. We're also inclined to retain data that would be more likely to elicit a response from us. In conversation, we generally look for openings for us to say something to get our 2 cents in. This is normal, but it's not entirely conducive to active listening. To properly retain what our conversation partner is telling us, we have to put our egos away and focus squarely on the other person's words. We can't act like we know the next thing they're going to say. We have to let them say it to complete their thoughts. Retaining is also held back by a variety of things, including distractions, cognitive bias, or memory-related problems. To ensure you're getting all the relevant information you need, you could ask, "What does that mean to you? How did that make you feel? What was your reaction?" Responding. Active listening requires an effort to form a knowing and proper response. Otherwise, the speaker might feel like they're talking to a brick wall. An effective response will demonstrate our concern for what they're talking about. You're listening, comprehending, and retaining already. A quality response will prove that you understand everything they've said and picked up on their nonverbal communication. Like retaining, it's important that a response isn't tinted with our own ego or ideas. You're trying to get a sense of the other person's feelings and opinions without biases you've developed. Speaker A. And that's what I don't like about going to dinner parties. Respondent B. That sounds insane. Were you flustered when that odd man jumped out of the cake? Speaker A. Not flustered so much as disappointed. I expected something a little more grown up from the Temperance League. Respondent B. It must have tried your patience, did it? Speaker A. A little bit, but more than anything else, it just proved that I have to start putting some restrictions on the entertainment budget. Responses in active listening should be reflective of what the speaker has said. They should display a deep interest in your partner's thoughts and feelings. Rather than shaping our own opinions and viewpoints, good responses in active listening help both parties make their own self-discoveries. In issuing a quality response, try to reply to your partner's thoughts and feelings. You can do this by restating what they've said in your own words. Stay within their standpoint when you respond. Introducing a suggestion or idea that doesn't have anything to do with their immediate situation could be too jarring or distracting. Don't offer a contradictory or conflicting opinion until you have fully understood, as much as you can, everything your partner is conveying to you. And even then, try to keep strong judgments tamped down. Here are some positive responses in active listening. I'm intrigued by your story. That sounds like a blank situation. I can see how you'd feel that way. I get the sense that you feel something has to change. What would you like to see happen? Do you feel anxious about this situation? The general goal of active listening is to fully grasp the viewpoint or life experience of the person who's speaking to you, and for you to absorb that information in a meaningful way that could spur you to new knowledge and understanding. To accomplish the goals of comprehending, retaining, and responding, you can employ a few or more of these techniques. Restating. Paraphrasing your partner's sentiments in your own words is an exceptional way to facilitate your comprehension. It's important not to simply repeat what they said back to them like a parrot, but rather to show that you've caught the essence of what they were saying. Them. That situation confused and scared me. You. It must have felt like a dangerous moment. It must have been hard to know what to do. Reflecting. An alternative way of restating is to frame your reply along the lines of emotions rather than events or story points. Reflecting gives the speaker's story a deeper level that you can prove you have a handle on. Them. So in the end, my dad said he knew all along I wouldn't get into that college. You. That's terrible. That sounds like a cruel kind of rejection. Summarizing. Try to verbally round up the details of a speaker's story into a concise form that displays that you get the whole picture. You. So the baker got your order wrong, the dinner was burned, and they sent a hypnotist instead of a clown. Man, if that were my kid's birthday party, I'd feel ticked off. Label emotions. Often, a speaker will just get lost in the practical and physical details of what they're relating to you. As sensitively as possible, try to identify the emotions they haven't been able to specifically verbalize yet. Them. Finally, my boss apologized for overlooking my work and assured me that he was going to pay more attention from now on. You? Wow. I'm guessing you feel pretty relieved and vindicated by that, not to mention a little cocky. Probing. Without sounding like an invasive interrogator, try to ask leading questions that will elicit a deeper level of understanding and meaning from the person you're speaking with. Most people enjoy being asked questions that are well-formed and not too presumptuous. You. What did it feel like when that woman berated your kid at the supermarket? How did you really want to respond? Silence. Frequently, there's more to be said by a well-placed silence than by filling up the space with additional verbiage. Silence can give every participant a miniature bit of time to gather themselves and their thoughts. It could also help reduce the tension that could arise from a tense or fruitless interaction. Them. And that's when I decided skydiving wasn't my thing, especially when it's work-related. You. Not sermonizing, giving unsolicited advice, or glibly reassuring. Nobody likes to be put on a level secondary to someone else, and in communication, such a feeling might make the speaker feel like shutting down further discussion. Them. And worst of all, he can't remember to put the toilet seat down. Sermonizing you. You should never have let him in your bathroom in the first place. Unsolicited advising you. You should barricade the bathroom until he agrees to your demands. Glibly reassuring you. Don't worry about it. Tomorrow's another lovely day full of wonderful possibilities. Asking leading and open-ended questions. To show that you're invested in your partner's well-being, ask some non-binary questions about their experience. These questions show that you're ready to get input and that you're interested in more than just the data or facts of a certain situation. Them. So I decided, after a couple $100 later, perhaps parallel parking was something we're going to have to work a little harder on. You. How does that make you feel? What are your plans for learning? Where do you plan on doing it? What do you hope comes out of it? Active listening takes a lot of patient work and practice and can even be challenging for people who are good at it. But it pays off in creating an atmosphere of true comprehension, easier information flow, and increased respect for all parties. It's communication at its highest. This has been Improve Your People Skills: How to Connect with Anyone, Communicate Effectively, Develop Deep Relationships, and Become a People Person. Written by Patrick King, narrated by Russell Newton. Copyright 2019 by Patrick King. Production copyright by Patrick King.